Thank you for joining us. We are about to embark upon a new series on SWOT. SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats, in the series on developing our life skills. Join us as Michell Bell takes it away. Here you go.
And I know I'd like to give you a couple of minutes to maybe think of what you want to jot down. So let's start with that. So for myself as a teacher, some of the strengths that I have it's being organized, adapt, and also a second one would be adapting different learning styles. If I'm stuck with one, it kind of limits me. So it's being able to adapt to different ones is a strength. Also, open to learn, that is a strength. If I am not open to learn, how can I expect my students to be open to learn? And I just want to reach out to maybe, let's see if we have anyone here that would like to share one or two of their strengths that they have written down. You can use the reaction button if you like, if anyone would like to. On my, unfortunately, on my end, I don't see everyone, so.
Okay, I'll work as your backup,
Okay.
your assistant.
All right. Okay.
And I would like to just kind of share as well, because I am also an educator as well, and so I want to make sure that that I'm contributing as well. As far as one of the strengths that I do have is that I'm very creative. That is, I think, one of the top strengths that I have. I'm able to adjust to my students' needs. So, my list would be creative and innovative. Willing to adjust is third, and often able to be transparent is another strength that I have. So I'll just share with that. So we're either going to call upon each one of you, or we'll take volunteers first. So make sure that we're engaging in this, think about, just like your students, we need you to get into engage here. So Joanna, I see that you're on board. Can you give us a list of your four strengths?
I have four of them. I have technology,
that's a good
communication, organize, and adaptation.
Very nice. Thank you for that. Thanks for participating on that. How about Christine?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. I guess I'm very flexible. I'm always like willing to learn new ways, new ideas, and I try to be a part of a team and see if I can contribute or get some ideas.
Thank you for sharing that. Those are all very important in a classroom setting, because everything that you're doing is an example for your students. So being flexible is something that they need to know how to do as well, because everything things change. You have to be able to change with it. So thank you for sharing. Okay.
I'll,
So
I'll
yeah,
go
thank
next.
you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name's Mark, and I think I'm able to see the big picture in various situations, based on my background and experience and situations I've been through.
Mhm.
I think my time awareness, my just keeping on task and being aware of timeliness, empathetic. I feel I'm empathetic in many ways, and then flexible,
Mhm.
adaptable. Yes.
Very good. Thank you for sharing those, Mark. And yes, always having your experience and seeing the bigger picture is always a plus. So that's a thank you for sharing your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? I don't want to stop anyone before we move on.
I can share.
Okay, thank you.
My strength will be I, create daily schedules for myself that I keeps me on task.
Mhm.
And then I have patience with little kids, collaborating with staff, and willing to learn a new skill.
Very good. Very good. I love that you said the patience. That is so needed, especially with the little children. I mean, you need it with all the ages, but not everyone has that. So that is a strength. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So anyone else? I don't want to. Okay. Thank you. So now we'll move on to our next, which is weakness. Now we're going to describe 4 weaknesses. And this can be difficult because, we're always wanting to put on and show our best. But when you acknowledge what is weak, it does allow you the opportunity to strengthen or better. So for myself, I have a few that I've put down. I'm soft spoken, and so sometimes I look at that as a weakness because sometimes, if I'm not having that big, strong, boisterous voice, maybe people don't think that I'm serious, which is not the case. But another one is can't adapt to different situations as quickly as I want to. That is something that I'm working on. Another one maybe even would be avoid confrontations. So, and I feel like I have knowledge of technology, but there are always those times where you see that there's always more technology that I could learn and not mess up on. So those are some weaknesses that I'm experience. So I'd be curious to see to hear what others are struggling with or working to overcome.
Due to time, I'll just go ahead and step in.
Okay.
We all have areas that we are a little timid, perhaps, about, or we have some deficiencies. I know with me, I feel that in the classroom, one of my weaknesses is being the fear of failure. Fear of failure with maybe not applying or my students not grasping the information that I've provided. And so with that, it causes me to, instead of push forward, maybe to pull back a little bit with this, a fear of failure and with the students, and sometimes that can really allow me to get stuck. And so I think that that's an area that I do struggle with. So fear of failure, that's what I'm going to go with. And due to time, can we have someone else chime in?
Yeah, maybe due to time, they could just share one.
Right, absolutely. But make sure you list 4, because it's really needed for you to have this information. How about Pearl? Are you there? Can you share a weakness or an opportunity that you feel that, that you're a little leery about? What would you say? What is one of your weaknesses, Pearl?
What I just wrote down too, not having enough time to get, things on my list done. And then fear of the unknown, like not knowing what's what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
That's,
Yeah. That's really honest. I mean, it is. I think we all kind of go through that as well. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, especially in this new environment, economically in so many different areas. So I think that's very authentic. Thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Mark?
I'd kind of lean toward failure based on situations and like morale. I think, it's hard for me to overcome certain situations and my morale stays low. So I'm always trying to look for personal improvement strategies to not fall into that rut of failure and, low self-esteem.
Wow, that's a big one too, because you know what? I think in these areas of our weaknesses and even sharing it publicly, it makes us vulnerable. And when we become vulnerable like that, is if we're not in an environment where we can trust someone, that can be another one I can see as far as trust. I know in the workplace that is sometimes a fear where we don't feel that we can trust others. We can't really be honest. We can't, be forthright. And sometimes, that does affect our self-esteem. I think that that's really a big one that a lot of us kind of silently suffer with. So thank you so much for all of you that have shared, being vulnerable.
Yeah, like losing face, however that concept of losing face.
Wow.
That's kind of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. And I think in an educational environment, of achievement, I still feel that we are under pressure with that. We're somewhat under a microscope from others, or we're looking at others, that how they are judging us. Even in the smaller things, even in presentations, it's that judgment that we do. And some of us, when we have, we're struggling with our self-esteem and morale or whatever, we kind of shrug back under those circumstances. We might see someone that does an outstanding presentation and they've done great, and we judge ourselves according to that. So it can be a weakness, and it causes us to maybe stay down and feel that we're not good enough. Very good stuff. Absolutely. How about you, Christine?
Well, I guess this year I would say is taking on a new task, and then or a job, from where I came from, I easily adapt, and so that's like a new thing for me. And what I carried on from what I've learned, I noticed I'm still continuing, is I easily agree. Even though in the back of my mind, I have an idea and I just want to keep it neutral. So, sometimes the idea I know is going to work. And then I'm like, I'll just give in. I'll just, go and take. you know, it makes it easier for the whole environment itself. And
Wow.
what if I create an argument? And one thing I really hate is being kind and pleasing others.
Mm.
Sometimes you get put down in a
I
way that's, always, I learned that from my mom and dad.
Mhm.
And I blame them. Sometimes I'm mad at myself. I'm like, why don't you teach me to be mean? Just say what I have to say.
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Wow.
I'm trying to like, so kindness can ruin you, you know.
Wow.
That's one of my experience.
Wow.
I-
Thank you
And
so
I'm
much
like,
for
maybe if
being
I could
so
be
vulnerable.
mean, and then it's like you feel like nobody notices you. And I'm
Mm.
like, why am I always being nice? Why can't I be mean? You know? And I took that with me wherever job I go to, just from my native teaching that we were told, be nice, be generous. It takes you a long ways. Be positive. So, but sometimes I think you need to be bold. You gotta speak your mind, but you don't want to hurt the other person. So you just keep it neutral.
Wow.
So
You bravo. Okay, we're
Yeah.
gonna give you we're gonna clap. We're all clapping because this is truly what this is about, in the importance of being able to be in a safe environment to truly share your feelings and not be judged up on that. I just think that it is being brave, and this is such a huge step of being brave. And thank you so much for sharing from the bottom of your heart. These are these things that we do go through, and silence, and these silent struggles. Just as if what Mark shared as well. It kind of reinforces sometimes that we all struggle with our self-esteem, and are we good enough? I know really from a cultural background, this is huge.
Mhm.
And being minority and being in a smaller culture, or a culture that is not, of course, the dominant culture, we sometimes back down on who we are. But this reinforces, and I just have to share with you, Christine, this is why these professional development classes are not just about learning what to take into the classroom for our kids, because if we're not learning, if we're not changing, if we're not becoming a little bit more transparent, how can we expect our students to do that? And so
Yeah.
we have to be our own example in change, and really learning these life skills that we need to be, that we're going to take forward into our lives and changing. Yes, you mentioned also about what our parents teach us, right? We need to make sure that we're responsible for ourselves now and what we're learning. Yes, kindness is good, but it also can be a weakness. And one life skill that we can learn is how to be bold. It comes from learned information, and it helps to empower who we are, in learning to know who we are. Some of these things that we've learned as children and in our background, they form our values of who we are, but they can also be misconstrued as a weakness if we don't make those adjustments. That's why we have to boldly point these out and to become vulnerable. Wow. Thank you so much. This is really, really good.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to chime in on the weakness? I know that's always kind of the hardest. We can talk about our strengths. We can talk about how we want to change. We can talk about what other people are doing to threaten our lives. But we become vulnerable, and when we bring it out to change, that is when we can really move into getting the help that we need and the strength back there. Anyone else want to share?
Well, I want to thank you, the ones that did share, for because it, like Dr. Eagles was saying, it's difficult to share, weaknesses, and I just really appreciate your honesty. And I just want to that tell you, Christine, that I know kindness can feel weak, but to be kind is so strong. Anyone can be mean, but it takes a strong person to be kind when others are mean around them. So just wanted to tell you that. But moving along here for opportunities, I would like to I'll share four of mine that I look at as new opportunities. One of them is ways to express the value of culture, my culture. As Dr. Eagles was sharing earlier, if you're not the dominant, you're not always feeling free to express who you are and your culture. But that is something that I am working on and looking forward to doing. Another one is use creativity, thinking outside of the box as a new opportunity. Another one is I want to always make sure when I'm teaching that tell my students why and make sure they understand why they're actually learning a subject. Many times, we get into the habit of teaching a subject and we're going through the routine, but we kind of miss explaining to them how this will help them as a life skill. And unless they see the relevancy of it sometimes, they just let it go. But we want them to engage and learn in it. And then lastly, ask for what I want. So I wanted to also hear from you. Anyone else want to share some of the opportunities that they aspire to achieve?
I'll go ahead and chime in quickly.
Okay.
One of the goals that I do as providing an opportunity for my students is to allow them to explore and to find different ways, not necessarily to be stuck in maybe the traditional ways. And so I feel that a way to express themselves, to explore, and these are true opportunities that I set forth in the classroom to allow the students to have a voice, and to truly hear them from a different perspective. I think oftentimes we don't, as the instructor, it's kind of like do it my way or the highway kind of thing. And because of diversification in the classroom and different cultural backgrounds and how people learn, that is something that I try to bring in. So I want to I give an opportunity for students to explore different ways of learning.
Okay.
Anyone else with some opportunities? How about Joanna? Are you there? How about you, Joanna? Oh, you were already ready to go, huh?
Well, I was just listening and I wrote down opportunity to speak our language.
Mm-hmm.
Because, especially in this virtual learning, that's a lot of focus that we're doing now. And I think that's good. Another one is opportunity for teachable moments.
Mm.
I've when I was not working with the little ones and I was in the classroom, there was a lot of teachable moments, that I worked with children when opportunities came up. I teach him something really quick right there. So those are like two things that I wrote down.
Very good.
Yes, thank you for sharing.
Anyone else? Mark?
Well, I can go next.
Okay.
Some of the opportunities I would say is just what Joanne said, is just speaking my Navajo language and knowing my culture. I'm not saying, I'm, highly, I know everything, but just by observation, what was taught through the years. And then also taking courses, and then learning to, you know, um, just doing some crafty stuff that is cultural related. And then just speaking my language. That's the real, I think I'm glad I know my language. And then I also, went to school no matter how things were tough. And I would say I'm grateful to be here today, learning new ways, and 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 I do like working with children.
Great, thank you for sharing those with this. And I love that you say you want to share your language, because like I said earlier, having your culture and knowing what you know and passing it on, to me is very valuable, because it helps you know who you are and where you came from. And when you don't know that, that can be a void. And I know a lot of cultures, well, I know in my culture, that's a problem that a lot of people are missing, because there's gaps and there's things that we don't know in our culture. It's missing. So having that, it helps build a foundation in the student or person, knowing who they are, where they came from, and having that. So that's great that you're doing that. Anyone else?
I can go.
Yeah.
Okay. What I wrote down is taking care of myself,
Mm-hmm.
and then listen first, then ask or question the children when they um um you know something to share, and then make teaching fun. Since I'm in a preschool setting, I want to make it fun, where they want to, not knowing that they're learning. And then creative ways for students to learn, using different strategies.
Mm-hmm.
What I wrote down.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those. Oh, anyone else? Okay, then I'm going to move on to our last one, which is threats. What do we see as threats blocking us from achieving our professional goals? So for myself, I've put down being open for myself. As a threat, I need to be open and as a learning and also listening. Because if you, like you were saying earlier, it's important to listen, because if you don't listen, you're missing out on what the other person is saying, and you don't want to do that. Another threat, I feel cultural suppression is a loss of opportunity of education. So, if students don't feel like, or I'm sorry, not students, myself, if I don't feel that my culture or me is included in something, why move forward with it? So that, to me, that's a threat. Another threat again can be learning a lot of technology. Sometimes it can be overwhelming because everything's changing so quickly. You feel like you can't always keep up with it. And so I want to hear from the rest of you. What do you feel are some threats for your professional goals?
I'll go this time.
I can go next. Some things that I can think of is that the new, like you said, the 21st teaching, and then we have the traditional teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So being in education for 18 years, I feel, some traditional teaching, they still work. And especially for our children here on the Navajo reservation, we need structure. We need that teaching, just to sit and work fast. Otherwise, if you, yes, the 21st teaching has a lot of flexibility, a lot of interactions. And then I always go back to thinking about our children on the Navajo reservation. And so I do believe that, I heard it before about, I think it was my first year of teaching about 18 years back. Teachers would be frustrated saying, "Oh, I hate it when you start a new program and then they come up with another program." And then I laughed about that because it's so true. And once you're still learning one, and then they bring in another one. So, and then now we're working with a new thing at the school level. But then you have to be like, go back and research it yourself, and how will I fit this into our students' life, and so that's one of my threats, is the changes. And then I have to keep up on reading about the new research. Like I did read one where they said all the pedagogy about Piaget's research. Now they're saying that, put that one aside and this is what we think. So I was reading an article like that. So yeah.
Right. We're ever evolving, right? Always changing. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
I'll just quickly say, I love that one about technology seems to be a big threat. That was definitely on my list as well. In education, I feel that it's important to be aware of what is available to us in technology, but there is always this fear, just like what you just said, as far as we learn something new, then it's like, okay, now, and you feel comfortable with that. And then as soon as you become comfortable, it's like, okay, we're going to do something new. At our university, that I've been working with over the past 2 years, this one new format that is just like, wow, I love that I've mastered it now. And, you can just go through it and use it very quickly. And last week I was notified that, we're going to change the platform. And the first thing that it's just like, I get automatically a little bit, insecure about it, because it's like, now is that taking time away from my teaching strategy of what I, have been doing, because I have to learn something new. So I do feel that is one. Another one for me is the threat of lack of knowledge. What I have found is that when I'm unsure of something myself, then I'm not going to be as comfortable with answering the questions for the students might have or peers might have, etc. So making sure that I'm staying current is a threat. When we are not current, we feel we're kind of at a loss, and working with outdated materials can also be a threat in the classroom. But I do specifically see within your cultural environment that there are some needs that you have to adhere to, making sure. I love, just real quickly, the importance of sharing your culture and sharing your language, and keeping that current is very important. And thank you so much for sharing that as well. Let's quickly move maybe to the switch gears, Michelle, and move over to what from a student standpoint, and now having that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So now I'd like you all to take a look at the student life skills. And again, we still have the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, but we're going to look at what we notice of our students' strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And like before, I'd like you to jot down 4. I'll go ahead and share some of mine, and then I'd like you to, jump in and share what you've written as well. So to begin with, strengths with my students that I notice that leadership, you'll have a couple of students in your class, not all of them, but you'll be able to tell right away which ones have those leadership qualities, and you kind of want to nurture that and help them keep that. Another one is group engagement. Some, depending on their learning styles and their personality, they engage well in groups. Some, they're introverts, maybe they don't, but those are being engaged in a group. It is helpful because it helps with it helps them down the line with their just being able to what's the word I want to use? It helps them to engage with others, participate. Another strength is problem solving on their own. That's a strength. That's basically what we want, where we want them to get, is that they see a problem and know how to solve it on their own. And I'm not speaking of maybe a math problem so much, but just problems in general. And then also applying what they're learning to their life. I've noticed those strengths in my students, and I'd be curious to hear what you all see or notice. Anyone want to share?
I can.
Thank you, Mark.
On the strengths, trust.
Mm-hmm.
I think students need to have trust, especially with authority, and elders. I think they have to be adaptable, and that comes through teaching and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
They need to, like you said, be good communicators. I think especially people communicating, not social media communicating. I think our young generation, that's a gap with many of them.
Yes.
And then time management.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Anyone? Thank you, Mark. Those were all great. Anyone else?
One thing that I'll just jump in with that I feel that I often see as a strength with my students is going back to identifying those students that have this natural kindness about them. Just that seems to be a real strength that I notice right away. People that are helpful. Those type of students that are helpful, that want to volunteer is another strength. And those are things that we can look for in our students as far as a strength. And then we can use these strengths or these things that we find, the leadership, the group management, problem solving, all of these that we've listed here as ways of indicators to allow them to shine in those strengths, okay? And use those as a model to help build in other students. So I know we're running out of time, so maybe we can move quickly to the weaknesses and making sure that we address that.
Okay. So some of the weaknesses that I noticed, again, I'll say students not knowing why they're learning a subject. They're just going through the motions, and usually when I see that, it concerns me because they're not really going to put their best effort toward it because they don't really see the relevance of how they're going to be using the subject, in their life. Maybe not being a team player, just not wanting to participate, to me, that is a weakness. Another one is not knowing your learning style. And I'm speaking not so much of little or younger students, but maybe older students in general. There's so many ways and different styles, and each person has theirs. Some are visual, some are audio, some are kinetic, some are verbal, logical. But until you figure out which one that you connect with, it can be a struggle, and that can be a weakness for you. And also, I consider a weakness is not knowing or understanding the value of learning. They don't understand that education is a key to their success, and not knowing that's a weakness.
That's where the teachable moments come in.
Yes. So anyone else want to share a couple weaknesses that they notice in their students?
Okay. Actually, if you don't actually have anything now, I really would encourage you to make sure this is very vital that we as the educator can identify this in our student. When we see and we can identify a student's weakness, it's going to help equip us to speak specifically to encouraging and to help them in that weakness. So these are some of the areas we really want to focus on, that we can adjust our teaching style to making sure that it is going to be a win-win situation. So if you don't have these, I really want to hold you accountable to making sure you get this list of it. It's just like if we have our own students and we have given them a homework assignment. If we don't hold those students accountable to it, then it's really up to the educator. So I'm going to hold you accountable to making sure you have your 4 things, because that's where we can help our students. Just because of time allotment, Michelle, you want to move on to the opportunities?
Sure. Some opportunities I notice in my students, I always want to make available where they can have class participation. Another one is recognize each student's achievements. And also team building within themselves. And then I want them also the opportunity that their education gives them a voice and that they know that. Anyone else want to share some of the opportunities that they notice?
I'll go.
Yes.
Can hear me.
Yeah.
Miss Johnson.
Miss Johnson, go ahead.
Opportunities for my students.
Mm-hmm.
I would say being expressive, giving them the opportunity to be expressive. I've had one student, I think last year, that was very, very expressive, and she kind of took on the teacher role at some point. Yeah, and then to be very vocal, really be outspoken. I think that they need that. The students need that, that opportunity. And another one is to share, really share out, with other as in cooperative learning. And they, students can really learn from one another and take on that kind of like a teacher role. And those are just three that I wrote down.
Great. They're all good, and thank you for sharing them very much. Anyone else?
I can go next.
All right.
I had problems with my connection, so I finally got back on. But I think for me, I like to give opportunities for students to work together and think equally. And try to have them at an make sure not one is overpowering the other one, and I always look out for that and give everyone a chance
Yes.
to glow, I guess, to see
Yeah.
that uniqueness inside them. So
Very good. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. Thank you so very much. Anyone else?
I can share.
Okay.
I would say, providing students with the Wi-Fi and technology
Mm-hmm.
and language and culture supported from the school.
Mm-hmm.
We are a small school. Teachers are open to students and parents when they want to reach out.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. And then I know in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going here. Lastly, the threats. What do we notice? Threats that our students may feel are in their way from achieving their goal. And what I have noticed, time to complete their work. I mean that even affects me, but we're always seeming to run out of time, but I know they struggle with that as well. Another one I say is losing interest, in a subject, and distractions. And then lastly, well, they can have, home issues. We never know what they're dealing with when they come to school. And then, they gotta, it's a challenge to, they're like they're carrying life challenges inside, but they gotta come in and sit down and learn something when they're really dealing with something else. So I'm curious to hear what the rest of you have. Anyone want to share a threat?
I'll share.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson.
Threats for my students are, I guess, confidence. Their
Yeah.
self-confidence.
Okay.
I think that has a lot of them have it is a threat because of how they perceive others looking, how they're seen
Mm-hmm.
by their ability level, based on their ability level. And then, like you said, time. And then another one is support from the teachers and support at home. I think that plays a big part in part of the threat. I only wrote down 3, so
That's okay. They were all good. Anyone else?
The couple that I had that are just out there are judgment from others. I think oftentimes students can be victimized by judgment. Again, kind of maybe in the classroom. Also, bullying could be another big issue. I agreed with of course, the time management, etc. One is a lack of just general resources, I think, is also a threat. We find that some schools, some school districts might have tons of resources available for students. And then, some, school districts may not have the availability of various resources, whether just written resources, technology resources, community resources, etc. So, with that, I think it might be a good time. I want to respect everyone's time as well, since we're now going to 2-hour professional development training, which I think is a great idea. I think this one has been very successful. And Michelle, I'll just have you close out on this, and then I will give everyone a quick preview of what's next.
Okay. Well, first of all, in wrapping up here, the education of SWOT, or SWOT, is the truth about learning basically who you are and create your strong foundations with yourself and then also with your students. And I want to thank you all for allowing me this time to participate with you, and thank you all for sharing. Appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you all so much as well. Some of the other quick things that I'm just going to close out with, because I think it's very important for us to kind of have a preview of what's next. But some of the other issues that we did mention have to do with residential issues, cultural hardships, basic trauma that individuals might go through. A failure to have the motivation of moving ahead. We need to make sure we know how to gear up for that. We talked about the new way versus the old way of learning, traditional learning, and land-based learning skills are some new opportunities that we are going to be addressing. Also, there's that age-old thing of prejudice, overcoming past and present abuse issues. So these are definitely things: low self-esteem, lack of trust, food, nutrition, health needs, really knowing what's going on in our town. What does our community have to offer? Financial needs as well, and the future, and learning skill-based learning opportunities. So what we're going to start doing, we're going to start really honing in specifically on specific tasks such as parenting skills, skill-based learning, and making sure that we are developing skills and training concepts for each grade level. So we will definitely be having a little bit more, a stronger focus on these as we are moving forward. And I think everyone will be very impressed on the capabilities of what we will be learning. And then finally, let's see if I do have my last one here. Maybe I don't have it. I don't have it here, but based on time, we're going to move into the strategy of learning how to have and teach responsibility in the class. There it is. So that's the one that we're going to pick up on next week. And I think you'll really enjoy this, as far as we'll specifically hone in on life skill learning and learning specifically life topics having to do with responsibility. So next week, same time, same place, we will hone in on developing a strategy and workshop on putting these into action. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I think that there may have been a time change debacle that took place. May I ask, so where you guys are located there, what time is it actually?
The Navajo Nation is always on mountain time. The Navajo Nation always
Mountain
follows
Standard.
mountain time.
Standard
Yes.
Time, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it will still be moving forward with the 7 a.m. our classes as we move forward, 7 a.m. to 9. So we're moving to a 2-hour schedule. Okay, just
So that's 6 to 8 your time.
yeah, absolutely. So it's 6 to 8 my time, and then Michelle, what
Yep.
Michelle?
I'm Pacific, so it'll be like Mark said, it'll be 6 to 8.
Okay, 6 to 8.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So we're good to go. So just wanting to get that in. We're going to the 2-hour. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we will continue next week. I hope you have some good takeaways. So without any further ado, bye bye. See you all next week.